It's the moment the world stops. When you find out that someone you love is never coming home. That they died too young, long before they were supposed to. On June 30th this year, a Yemeni Airbus crashed into the Indian Ocean with 153 passengers as it tried to land in bad weather. For hours and days, there was no news. Search parties looked for clues and bodies, but found hardly anything. Only one passenger was found alive. Kasim Bakari's 14-year-old daughter, Bahia, held onto a piece of the wreckage until her rescue. We met him as he waited for her to be flown back to France. Her mother didn't survive.
When
we arrived at the airport, I gave them both a little kiss. I saw my wife. She turned around and looked at me. She waved at me, but my daughter didn't do that, and that was the last time. I hope that I will see her, but for my wife, it was the last time.
66 of those on board were French nationals, and their relatives in France gathered at a Paris airport in search for answers.
I don't understand. I'm here to find out more information because I want to understand. I already know that my cousin is dead and that her body has been found.
Across Africa, travelers are getting more and more worried. The memory of the Kenya Airways crash in Cameroon just 2 years ago is still fresh in many people's minds. And it was another crash with few answers. The official report still hasn't been released. Peter Wakahia is an aeronautical engineer in Kenya's Ministry of Transport.
We do have more accidents in Africa. The rates of accidents as compared to the number of movements. We probably have close to the highest in the world. And this one is mainly, as I said, because of the aging fleet of aircraft that we have in some countries which do not have proper governments.
Weeks after the Comoros crash, Mariata Yusufa, like hundreds of other victims' relatives, still has no answers and is struggling to come to terms with losing her 2 brothers and a sister. Angry that relatives were not being well supported, Mariata started the Victims Association, running it from her office in the French coastal city of Marseille, home to many immigrants from Africa.
Well, how do I feel? Physically? Morally? I don't know. It's very difficult. I lost my oldest brother, the eldest of the smaller boys in our family, and then my big sister, so it's definitely not. In 30 days, I don't know. I don't know if pain diminishes as the days go by. 10 days ago, I felt a little down, and then my brother came and said, "You have to meet this family. They're not well. They live just behind here." So we arrive, we park, we walk up 4 flights of stairs, and I find this lady with 4 children, totally lost, hardly speaking French. So I explain to her what she has to do and ask what she's done since the crash, and she says nothing. The only thing she can tell me is that her gas bottle is empty, and she lives 4 flights up, and she doesn't know who's going to bring her a new one so that she can feed her children.
De gaz, il y a 4 étages, elle ne sait pas qui c'est qui va lui emmener le gaz pour faire manger aux enfants.
Abubakar Darueche lives in the same neighborhood. His brother Adam died in the crash, and his body is yet to be recovered. Adam leaves behind a widow and a son. Although Abubakar doubts that he'll ever see his brother again, he says he can't be sure until the body has been found. That's what makes grieving for him so difficult.
No, we'd need at least to have our little brother's body to bury. At that moment, we can say that we have begun the grieving process when we have found him. No one has found him.
Julie Kihara, a Kenyan florist, can relate to what the affected families are going through. She too lost her husband in 2000 after a Kenya Airways plane crashed into the Atlantic Ocean after taking off from Abidjan. Only 10 out of 179 passengers on board survived. Julie's husband, a financial advisor, was not among them. At the time, Julie was a stay-home mom. Though it wasn't easy, she knew she had to deal with her grief and be there for her family at the same time.
Oh my God.
9 years later, Julie now runs House in Bloom, a business that deals in flowers and organizes events.
Immediately after my husband passed away, I had to put food on the table. My breadwinner was gone, and I needed to do something as now a provider, because I had to take that role. The shoes were so big, even now I've never managed to fit in them. But it's an exciting journey to just see us grow from 3 arrangements, 15 arrangements, to now putting weddings together. It's quite exciting.
Today, Julie's business provides employment for 35 people.
I had some lapses of feeling discouraged and feeling like I will not make it, but I had to just put my head up. Even if I was feeling like almost drowning, I had just to begin to just say I'm going to do it, and just give myself faith and focus with God's help that I would do it. But I would pray a lot, and I know that there's so many people who used to pray for me. Yeah.
The airline compensated Julie, and the funds have helped keep her children in good schools. But she feels that airlines should do more to monitor families long after the crash.
I think they should have done more follow-up in terms of, okay, there's one thing to lose one family member or a very good person who is needed in the community. There's one other thing to just know how are the extended family members or people who have been affected by that crash. How are they moving on in life? I think it's a very good in terms of counseling and just knowing their whereabouts, how they're coping with it. I think it's very important.
Sumi Mwai is a psychologist based in Nairobi and has counseled many families who've lost their loved ones to plane crashes.
First and foremost, it's important to understand that compensation can never replace the person. So that's really not what compensation should be seeking to do. However, I think adequate compensation would, in a sense, ensure that the family is somehow helped to bridge between what the person was able to do for them and they are moving on.
The families of the Yemenia crash victims were offered 20,000 euros each, but Mariata says many don't know how to claim it.
The authorities could have sent someone to go and see them, but they didn't. And there's somewhere I'm the first external person who has given them a call. And they say, oh, no, we didn't know.
Back in Kenya, Julie's got a busy day ahead of her, starting with delivering flowers to a client. Later this afternoon, she's doing a wedding. She's had no choice but to be strong and make it work. But that doesn't mean that she wouldn't rather be doing all of this with her husband, even now, 9 years later.
I think if Kihara was here or Dave was here, life would be smarter, because I myself, I think I'll get a relief because there's someone minding my kids when I'm very busy at work. And where sometimes I failed my kids in terms of when I need to pick them on time to drop them at the party, then I'm held up in the traffic and I'm trying to be everything at the same time. It's very difficult for a single parent to just balance work, home and whatever, but I've tried. He had big plans for my kids. Every time he would talk about them, even before I was expecting, he would talk big plans for them. And whenever I tell him, I don't know what I can tell you. Dad was here, you guys would have been very happy. But it's okay. It's well with our soul. We thank God that we've been able to move on.